Hey, Reliability Gang, I'm Jonathan Guiney.
And I'm Brendan Russ, and welcome to Reliability Radio, a JLL production and ReliabilityWeb.com media brand.
So, Brendan, oftentimes we talk about the integration of other concepts within reliability and asset management. Let's talk a little bit about sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that comes up a lot when you're looking at other organizational objectives. Like sustainability has been constantly gaining more and more traction within organizations, more goals associated with how the organization views its future, right? You have the United Nations sustainability goals, emissions class 1, 2, and 3, trying to knock down as much of those as possible. And more about how does that asset management tie into that to help achieve those objectives.
And I think it takes a concerted effort, right? It takes, somebody thinking about and creating a plan that integrates sustainability, safety, process quality in with engineering and all those other things that we do.
Yeah, and it's not just limited to that either, right? We're talking about energy monitoring or trying to come up with what are those alternatives or new standards of equipment classifications out there to try to help bring that down and bring that closer to home. And with us today, we have Kelley here from JLL to tell us a little bit about sustainability.
Hi, everyone. Kelley Amundson. I'm Senior Director of Sustainable Operations for JLL in Americas.
So, Kelley, talk to us a little bit about your day-to-day. What is sustainable operations?
We oversee energy, waste, water, and carbon reduction programs for all of our big clients.
So what are some of those initiatives?
We do everything from thinking about asset replacement, finding more energy efficient or lower carbon options. So if you've recently done anything where you're doing electrification projects, where we're reducing the amount of natural gas that we're consuming in our properties, those are really hot topics right now in sustainability. My team also does a lot of focus on water reduction programs. So thinking about how do we store and use rainwater to do all kinds of different things, run your cooling towers as makeup water, stuff like that. And then especially for our manufacturing clients, we do a lot in the waste space. So how do we reduce the amount of waste? And if possible, how do you reuse it or recycle it if need be? So those are our main focuses.
So how do you view when you go into these organizations across your day-to-day, they rank sustainability against all their other objectives?
Most large companies, so think your Fortune top 500, 100, they have a very robust energy and sustainability program, particularly for carbon reduction. As you get smaller, it is definitely not as prioritized.
Do you see it as a more integrated concept of this is where sustainability is, this is where safety is, or operational needs, or any of those things?
We tend to be very siloed out. And that's one of the things that in my role, I've been working really hard to break down those barriers. So why
do you think that is? Why do you think it's so siloed if it's getting more and more traction?
I think it's because typically your overall environmental impact is not run out of the real estate department of most corporations. So it's actually coming out of social responsibility somewhere, typically within a philanthropy arm of an organization. And so they're driving and setting targets for their entire organization across the board. Real estate plays a huge component in that. It's where most of your scope 2 and upstream your scope 1 emissions are coming from. So real estate plays a huge part, but isn't necessarily the main stakeholder. And that can create a lot of siloed efforts, I would say. And then also, I think that we typically get kind of grouped into under engineering, which is it's a natural fit for where we belong on the technical side of the house. But it can definitely mean that if we don't have the buy-in from our senior engineering leadership, that can become a very difficult place to drive change.
And when you think about that, it seems so ironic, right? Because what you talked about was asset renewal. You're talking about, eliminating waste. You're talking about reductions in energy, all those things that engineering is typically involved in. What's the driver for that not being integrated, right? I mean, you would think that the natural progression of what you do from a sustainability play would actually accelerate some of those engineering initiatives.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm driving at. I want my team to be embedded in your asset decisions. I think that sometimes we prioritize things in a way that engineering maybe wouldn't. And we're also asking you guys to come out of your comfort zone, right? I want you to think about maybe a new technology, a new refrigerant type, a new way of thinking about chillers or how we stage them, things like that. And that can often be met with a lot of resistance from the engineering teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's maybe not typical for some people. We're in 2025, about to head into 2026, right? The ways of working from 30 and 40 years ago are a lot different than they are today. The technology, the process, the integration of the sustainability concept within everything that we do, it's super powerful, right? I'm on an account today where that is completely integrated, right? We talk about safety, we talk about sustainability, reliability, asset management, process quality, all those things take one shape. And as everybody works together, you get a lot more stuff done.
Yeah, I like to think about engineering typically likes to do like for like replacements. My goal in sustainability is to change what you're doing from like for like to like for better, and especially like for better for the environment. So thinking about some of these newer things, I'm not asking people to go, way out to the bleeding edge, but I would like to kind of push the envelope towards a little bit more cutting edge when we're thinking, especially about assets that are going to have a really long life cycle. So that's my main theme for my team, is to really focus on integrating better with their engineering teams to make sure that we're showing value and we're not just saying you must go out and do something because it shows a huge reduction in carbon. I want them to go out and do something because collectively it's better for the building, it's better for their maintenance plan.
And that's the key. That's the ticket right there. When we talk about just baseline asset management, right? How we're going to take care of our goals and how they're aligned to the overall organizational needs. So I'm going to use an example, as you said, like collecting rainwater for cooling towers, right?
Yes.
So now you're talking about collection pots, decant systems, filtrations, additional pumps, valves, instrumentation to make sure that the makeup system is doing right. We all know that adds a lot of complexity, a lot of new failure points to a system that otherwise was legitimately just piped in the potable water the day before. So from a maintenance or reliability standpoint, that's a lot of risk now associated with that additional need. But that's for the betterment of the organization. That is more in line with the organization's goals to reduce the water usage or to minimize the impact of the emissions or whatever it has to be. And we all got to get in line with that, right? We don't always get to choose the most simplistic way of doing things, because obviously that's not the way the organization wants to go. They got to make their goals. Like most of these Fortune 500 companies are companies that go out there and make these very public statements to the street saying we will eliminate or cut our water usage or emissions by 50, 100% by 2050, 2040, 2030, right around the corner. Right. So these are things we got to get behind in order to make those commitments real.
And especially now that so much of our sustainability targets have become part of their financial reporting as well. So most of our very large clients are required to submit all of their carbon reporting through the SEC the same way that they do their financial records. So these programs are getting a lot more traction and are definitely, I think you'll see these become bigger and a more integrated part of our engineering team over the next few years. And I also feel like I want to make sure that we become a resource for all of our accounts. I want people to look at us and think about us as the people that we have a specialty knowledge in particular areas. Use that. So if you have a sustainability or an energy manager, talk to those people. They're usually on the forefront of a lot of technology that may not come up in your everyday life. I mean, how often, if you're a building engineer, you're replacing chillers every 20, 30 years. I look at people on my team are looking at chiller replacements every day. So we're a great resource because of the amount of oversight of how many assets we're talking about. We know what's out there and what's going to be on the the leading edge there.
Yeah, and you know the expertise that comes with these sustainability engineers is unbelievable, right? Like you said, the exposure that they have to all these different systems and replacements and being on the bleeding edge of the things that's happening within the industry, it's really powerful. They're able to feed in a lot of great inputs into long-range business plans and capital improvements and the like. I will also say that a lot of these people come with experience on specialty systems like thermal energy storage or, variable condition, refrigerant flows and all these different, systems that maybe some of the technicians and older operators may not have that exposure to today.
And they can also help provide that additional justification that you might need to get something done.
Oh, let's talk about that. You want to be able to quantify that, put that in the arms of an energy engineer, and then we'll have that done in 5 minutes, right? Where things that traditionally the engineering team may take a little bit longer to collect all the data and not understand the points or the calculations to tell that ROI story.
Yeah, you think you're just trying to get by with just a maintenance or reactive spend, but then you let an energy person tell you like, oh, here's all the energy that's being wasted, or here's all the additional emissions that's happening because of this piece of equipment. And suddenly you get a lot of eyes.
Yeah, we're very ROI focused. And then particularly also I like to kind of bring it back to that bigger perspective that we should all make the effort that as you're running a maintenance program, that you're not only thinking about replacement that benefits that specific building, but how can we really benefit the larger environmental ecosystem around us? So.
Yeah, one other thing that, I've had some experience working with your team directly on is just, we've gone through and created this whole Eco Champion program where we have people that are out there championing sustainability on an account. But they also have now enacted what we call energy treasure hunts, right? So we put technicians, we put FMs, we put all these people out in the field to go in and look for these different events. And I think what, these sustainability folks come to the table with is a different lens that they can see more impactful ways of working and identification of problems that ultimately will drive that needle further to the left.
Exactly. Yeah, we are, I always think I walk into every building with an energy and sustainability lens. Even sitting in this room, I've already scoped out all the lights. I could tell you probably what the better option would be, right? So I think it's really important that you utilize your energy and sustainability teams to help further the work you're doing and see them as a partner and somebody, especially with specialty knowledge.
As an accelerator.
Yes, exactly.
Kelley, do you have any last minute, nuggets of wisdom you want to give to the audience?
Always be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah, I think, the one thing that I took away from this conversation is challenging the like for like, right?
Yes.
Like for better, to progress is super powerful. Appreciate you bringing that to us.
Yes.
And with that, thank you, Kelley, for being part of the podcast. And for all of our listeners out there, we'll catch you guys next time.